Hello friends, and welcome back to Rachel's Baking Corner. Today we will be making the KingArthurBaking.com No Fuss Focaccia bread. I have made this bread 3 times. It is a go-to, it is very easy, it is very foolproof, and it's delicious. And you can do kind of whatever you want to. And that's a little bit of what we'll be doing today. I'm taking a couple different turns than I usually have and incorporating some different ingredients, mostly in the topping, but that's the best part about focaccia is you can top it however you want to, and it's different every time, and it's delicious. So a few things I'm gonna go over. I may not be able to remember the exact measurements of everything, but have no fear. All of the measurements and ingredients are going to be in the description box below, so including a link to the recipe. So it's all there and ready for you. The first thing I would like to touch on, when you can do this in advance, do it. This is my olive oil. It has garlic and thyme cut up into it. I did some garlic finely chopped, and then some garlic I did completely minced. That way it really perfumes the olive oil. The reason why you would like to do this early is because you want it to really permeate the olive oil and brew in the olive oil, kind of, so that when you top it on top of the focaccia bread, it tastes really good, and it adds that extra kick of just almost professionalism, truly, and it's really good. In addition to that, if you're eating your olive oil versus mixing it into a bake like an ingredient, you want to get the good stuff because you're tasting it for what it is, not just incorporating it as the oil. So I got an Italian extra virgin olive oil, something a little fancier, so that I could be confident it's going to taste great in the bake and on top of the bake. So lastly, ingredients. You have flour. The recipe calls for all-purpose flour. I have done it with all-purpose flour, but I prefer bread flour. I just think it adds more chew and a little bit crispier crust to the outside. The type of flour could possibly have nothing to do with that, but I like the bread flour. You need warm water, 1.5 cups. You need 1 tablespoon of instant yeast. You need 3 tablespoons of olive oil, my fancy stuff. You need a teaspoon and 1/4 of salt, and I used sea salt. And then it says, which is optional, 4 teaspoons of their pizza flavoring. King Arthur, of course. I went ahead and just took the liberty of 4 teaspoons, and I did 1 teaspoon of pepper, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, and 1 teaspoon of Italian dried seasonings. And it smells really good. So there's flavor in the bread, there's olive oil that's flavoring the bread, and then there's topping of olive oil and garlic and thyme, fresh thyme, really just making this a freaking showstopper. Okay, that was a really long intro, but that's kind of the thick of it because the rest of this recipe is super, super easy. So without further ado, let's get started. Things you're gonna need: a dough hook, spatula, and then your pan. This is another reason why I like this recipe. I can use my toaster oven. I have a KitchenAid toaster oven, and I love it because it does not heat up my entire house. So this pan is actually the exact size recommended for this recipe, so it's almost like King Arthur knew I wanted to use my toaster oven. You do not have to line it with tin foil. I just do that to protect my pan. And then you want about 2 to 3 tablespoons of olive oil, coating the bottom to help it from sticking, and also to almost fry the bread as it's being baked. So let's get on to the actual making. You don't have to use a stand mixer, but by golly, I would not want to do this by hand. I can just tell you that right now. We've got 420 grams of flour. And again, I'm using bread flour. It's really stuck in there. Okay. Now this is where the no fuss comes in. Seasoning. I'm not going to do the whole thing just yet. I'm going to wait and see how it smells. I don't want it to be too intensely seasoned because I have garlic and thyme going on top. Salt. Again, I used sea salt. yeast. Nope, doesn't go in the water. Nope, right in. Love it. And olive oil. Now, by no means do you have to buy super duper fancy olive oil, but you definitely don't want to get like the cheap stuff. You want something that's going to have a really good earthy flavor because you're eating it, just like as is almost. Okay, now you add your water. And this is warm water. I sure hope it's not too hot. I didn't really temp it, and you probably should, but you know, it wouldn't be Rachel's baking corner if I had thought of all that. Let's give it a whirl for 60 seconds until it makes a loose, shaggy, doughy batter. I'm gonna turn it up just a little bit. "60 seconds is up. Let's see how we're looking. So this is what we're working with here. Stringy, wet, but all well incorporated and mixed. Okay, I'm gonna say that there's enough seasoning in there. I'm gonna be putting more seasoning on top, so I don't wanna overpower it. So what we're gonna do, I don't really feel like oiling up my fingers at the moment. So I'm going to use my spatula, a rubber spatula, and just make sure all the tin foil is covered. And you want to make sure you get the olive oil up the sides because this is going to proof in this pan and we don't want it to stick. That would be a pain. Would not be fun. Now, I've watched a few videos on focaccia bread and focaccia etiquette and the best ways that it bakes. And I've learned that it's very rare to add too much olive oil. Obviously, you don't want it swimming because it is going to soak up all of that olive oil, but if you're using a good olive oil, you don't have to worry that much because it's going to taste really good. I have a dough scraper specifically for when you're making bread. You do not need one, but this definitely helps because the dough sticks to the sides like crazy, and this is flexible, so I can kind of use it like a rubber spatula and get it out of my bowl. There we go. Okay, I've got my focaccia in the pan. We're going to lube up the fingers. I already got stuff on me. Lube up the fingers really good, just using some of the oil from the pan. And we're going to spread it out pretty well. We want to get it all the way to the edges. And this is it. This is really it. It's going to proof in this pan. We are going to cover it in some greased saran wrap to keep it from drying out. And then after it's proofed, you poke some holes in it and you bake it. It is so stupid simple. You can't really mess it up. I am sticking to it like crazy, however. Okay, I really am. I need more oil. Here we go. Just gotta slap it sometimes. Now we have the saran wrap that we need to put on top of it. I just pull out a sheet and lay it flat on the table. And then we're going to just take a little bit of oil on top. Massage it with the fingers. This way we can cover the dough and we don't have to worry about it sticking to the dough, which I actually did last time, and it was a pain because when you pull it off, it sticks and then it pulls all those really nice bubbles out that you need to lift the dough. So this is a very important step. Don't skip this step. And don't just leave it out. And definitely don't throw a towel on top of it. This is not like regular bread. Okay. Just toss it on there to the best of your ability. Does not have to be perfect. All right, we've got our bread. My table is beautifully coated in olive oil now. We're going to let this rest for about 60 minutes or until it is puffed up. I usually just go where it is flush with the pan. That is the best way to do it. If you want to do a little bit more, you can, but don't overproof it. So now I'm going to let this proof, and I will be back to see you very soon. And we will poke, prod, and you know? Here we are, an hour later, roughly, maybe a little bit under. It is very warm where I live, so we already have about 1/2 inch over the pan puffed up. It looks great. It's okay that it went over the pan some, because as we pull the saran wrap off and poke the holes in it, it will droop just a bit. So let's get this off. Pulling from both sides helps. All right, I'm gonna use this to lube up my hands. Okay. And I have my oil that has the fresh thyme and the garlic in it. I'm going to basically put that right in front of my bread, and I'm going to generously drizzle, then poke the holes. That way the thyme and the garlic kind of gets poked into the bread and incorporates fully. Most people will poke first and then drizzle. To each their own. This is how I like to do it. All right, all the big chunks spread out. Okay, and then just to show you, just make some claws and poke all the way through. Kind of randomly, but also strategically at the same time. I'd say that's good. And then I'm going to gently drizzle some more of this on top. My cat is here. She wants whatever this is. Don't mind her. She is my biggest fan. I think we're gonna call that good. It just did exactly what I wanted it to. It bubbled up, it fluffed up really good. Okay, let me rinse my hands and then we'll stick it in the oven. I have a 375-degree oven preheated. This is also my toaster oven, for what it's worth. I almost forgot. Last but most definitely not least, this is very important, flaky salt. And there is such thing as oversalting, but with an olive oil based bread like this, you want to be pretty liberal. Really make sure you get that salt. It's very important. I undersalted once and it was very disappointing. I was like, oh, nothing's worse than having to resalt a piece of bread. Okay, I'd say that's good. Perfect. Okay, into the oven we go. So this should bake for 25 to 30 minutes. It may take a little bit faster for me because it's in a toaster oven, but I'm gonna let it go the full amount of time, and then we'll be back to let it rest a little bit and then chop it up and try it, okay? Okay. It's about to smell so good in this house, I'm telling you. You know, I just thought of something. I have a teeny tiny bit of olive oil left with garlic and thyme, and I have some balsamic vinegar. I'm gonna make a little dipping sauce. I'm gonna just eyeball this, but I love dipping my focaccia in balsamic. So I'm gonna just pour it into the Tupperware, close the lid, shake it up. Okay, let's see how that tastes. Let's do a little bit more vinegar. Let's add a pinch of salt. Were you walking back there the whole time? Lena! Well, it's Rachel's baking corner. Would not be Rachel's baking corner without my cat walking on my counter behind me. Okay, that was like 3 pinches of salt, but that's okay. Okay, let's see how that turned out. Yeah, perfect. Other dipping sauces that I would usually do is like Alfredo sauce, pizza sauce, or like marinara sauce, balsamic vinegar by itself, or mixed with a little bit of oil and salt like you saw. Or, I mean, shoot, you can dip it into anything or just eat it by itself. It's really good. Depending on how thick you can get it, you can slice it in half and toss in some meat and cheese, and oh, it's so good. So good. Okay, now I'm just patiently waiting for it to bake. Alright, so we are all done. We got a beautiful, beautiful hunk of bread here. We're gonna chop it up and display it all nice on our little board, and then we get to taste it. Ooh. So I have a knife. You could try a pizza roller, but it's hard to get straight lines, and I'm very picky. It's still pretty hot out of the oven. It's rested for about 10 minutes while I took some glamour shots. I'm just gonna cut a little bit to taste, and then I'll cut the rest for later. Beautiful. Let me grab my balsamic. Let's give this another good shake. Okay, let's try this piece. It's still nice and hot. And warm, not hot. Looks delicious. Let's get a close up for you. I think it looks perfect. And it's nice and crusty. Okay, so I'll try it alone first and then I'll dip. That thyme is so good. I'm glad I didn't over-season the inside of it. It's crispy, it's olive oily, it's salty, it's got that great yeasted bread flavor. Let's try it dipped. I could just sit here and eat this all day. It is crispy but soft. It's got all those little nooks and crannies of flavor. You get salt, and then you get garlic, and then you get a little thyme, and then you get salt, and then you get this delicious bready goodness. Oh gosh, it's perfection. So mine did bake for almost closer to 40 minutes, and I did increase my heat to 400 degrees in the last 10 minutes. Because my toaster oven doesn't exactly get that kind of like intense crispness like my regular oven does. So I wanted to make sure it got nice and toasted. Once this sits on your shelf for a day or two, before you serve it, I recommend putting it in a toaster oven or your regular oven under a toasting or broiling feature for just a little bit, just to re-crisp it, warm it up. It's worth it. It gets kind of soft and chewy after it's been in the package for a day or so. But other than that, it crisps up perfectly after that. Oh yeah. Okay, I gotta stop. Now I'm just eating bread. It's so good. All right, well, I really hope you enjoyed this video. I love this recipe. I highly, highly, highly recommend this recipe. Every link, ingredients, and the measurements are gonna be down below in the description box. I really hope you enjoyed this because I enjoy making it. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Comment what kind of recipes you'd like to see me do. I've been thinking about maybe doing Hokkaido Japanese milk bread rolls, or possibly my favorite lemon chicken and dill soup. I make it all the time and it's my go-to comfort food. Let me know what kind of stuff you want to see me make. I'm really interested in your opinion and making something you want to see. So once again, thank you for watching. I love y'all. Mwah. Have a good day. Make this bread. It's really good. Bye.